The whole world is sold out on barbells. They don't exist anywhere in the world. There's probably a ship somewhere out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean right now bringing over hundreds of thousands of barbells, and as soon as they hit the land, they're sold. They're impossible to get a hold of. Yet we still have to work on hip extension. We have to figure out how to get things off the ground, over our shoulder, up onto our shoulders, and do it efficiently and effectively so we can get strong, lean, and athletic using EMOM aesthetics, even if we don't have barbells. The most efficient tool we've ever found for getting things off the ground and getting them elevated to our shoulders, the power clean. However, if you don't have a barbell, how are you going to go about this process? How are you going to build athleticism? How do you build strength? And maybe there's even a tool, the Sandbag, that can get it done and create just as much, if not more, core strength, more leg strength, more mobility to pick it up, even though it's not a barbell. This week on EMOM Aesthetics. This week on EMOM Aesthetics, we're talking about the #1 tool that you can use to work on hip extension, building core strength, building leg strength, and increasing a little bit of mobility without using a barbell. When we think about athleticism, we're talking about the EMOM Aesthetics kind of core tenets of, efficiently, effectively building muscle, getting lean, staying athletic, and those three tenets. We have to talk about the athleticism piece, and there isn't a single sport in the world in which hip extension isn't at the core for generating power. Anytime you're throwing, anytime you are hitting, if it's a golf club, you're here, hip extension. Hip extension is really just how our body takes the energy driven through the floor, up through our body, and out towards an external object. And we can practice that in a gym, and we most commonly see it in the power clean, right? The bar starts at our mid shin, we drive, we jump. That's the hip extension piece where we're creating that athleticism, connecting our whole body, our core is nice and tight, and then we catch it on our shoulders. But as we mentioned in the intro, there isn't a single place to buy a barbell right now. The world is just barren of barbells, and it's a depressing time. I've had people reach out wondering how they can still get the same training effects. What are the things that they can use that are going to keep them strong, lean, and athletic? How do they substitute things out without a barbell? And I've been working with this company called MadFitter. I'm not paid by them or anything. They're just awesome people that do a great job. So you should check them out, MadFitter. They've got awesome sandbags. And this 100-pound sandbag here, it's been my go-to. I've got a 150 and a 75 in the back. But this 100 is like the perfect speed for me to be able to get it off the ground, throw it over my shoulder, really build that hip extension piece, really focusing on kind of keeping that core tight with an odd object, which always presents a little bit more of an issue, and you kind of have to generate more core stability through that movement. So the thing about the sandbag that I really love, when we get set up with a barbell, we're in a pretty standard position, barbell position, right? We've got 3 points here, the hip pushes back, the glutes are on, and that bar is going to rest right at our shins. We don't actually ever get our hips all the way down below in a starting position in many things. We may do it at the bottom of a squat, but as far as an actual start position where it's required to have mobility, there isn't much better than actually having an awkward object like a sandbag or a bag of rice taped together, or dog food, or whatever else you've substituted because you don't have a barbell and you don't have a sandbag. However, when you have a sandbag down at the floor, you can't really pick it up from the top, which means we have to sink our hips down significantly lower to be able to get our hands underneath there, right? So ideally, we're going to position ourselves directly behind the bag, or not behind the bag. Our feet are going to be to the side. We're on the back half of the bag, though. We're not standing over top of it here like we would like a kettlebell swing or a kettlebell deadlift. But we're going to be in the back half of the bag. And as we come down, this position is not going to be ideal. There probably isn't enough flexibility in our hamstrings, and we're going to have to sink our hips down. Now, what's great about this, not only are we in a start position with our hips below parallel to be able to stand this up, but if you notice, knees stay over the toe, And because this is such an awkward object, you're going to find that in order to be able to pick it up, you almost have to be in perfect position. With a barbell, because it's perfectly balanced and it's straight across, there's ways that your body can kind of overpower it. You're naturally going to brace your core a lot more when you're using a sandbag, purely because of the instability created with the sand, with the awkwardness that you're down low. Your body's naturally going to just get into a better position. So when we think about taking this thing off the ground, we're nice and tight in the core. We come straight up in that deadlift from the bottom position. Our hips are super low. We're driving straight through the floor till about this hip. This is pretty much the exact position that your hang power clean is going to be in. So that hang position is where we start to generate that power up. Just like a barbell coming from the shin to the mid-thigh, that position is going to be very tight. Abs are on, but not much changes. It's when we turn this thing over and start to build on that hip extension that we're really able to start generating a ton of power. And how I personally love power cleans with the barbell, but there are tons of benefit to having this bag here and being able to use that to start to practice this hip extension. So we're down at the bottom, our hands are under, core is nice and tight, feet are flat, chest is up, driving to here, and then just like with the power clean, we accelerate through that second pull until the bag is on our shoulder. So deadlift up and then accelerate and then back down. If you so choose to throw it over your shoulder, that's fantastic. That is super awesome. You can already tell after just one of those, there's a ton of demand on your core and your breathing and just to be able to get through those. But we want to think about getting through that second pull and being as strong and as fast as possible. So it's finish, and if that means we finish here and it's a little soft, I highly recommend finishing and throwing it all the way over your shoulder. That way you can be in a position where you're just 100% effort each time. So we're down here, we sink our hips, deadlift clean, and this 100-pound bag gets very heavy and very tricky really quickly. Another thing when we're thinking about kind of developing explosive power and really the athletic side of things, if we wanted to put more of a conditioning emphasis, or if you wanted to have less maximal power output, but you're completing an amount of work in a specific time, the sandbag gives us this opportunity to be able to kind of link things together in that we get it to our shoulder, we come back down to that hang position, to our shoulder and back down. We can do this with the barbell. You see that all the time, kind of like barbell cycling. I'd really like the idea of doing it with a sandbag because the core stability needed to catch a sandbag at the bottom is just insanely high. Because it's wider, it forces you to get into a better position with your knees tracking right over your toes, shins vertical, and an upright torso. You don't want to be here because it'll just pull you forward. So you're getting this like crazy good core stability as you build this thing out. So for like a set of 3, it's going to be a little bit higher on the metabolic conditioning side of things, the Metcon, high breathing, holding your breath, anaerobic side, but it's also going to be lower in total power output. So it's not a 1 rep max throwing it over your shoulder. It's going to be kind of like a 3 or a triple. I'm actually going to try and hit just a triple just so you can see what it looks like and how you reset. Coming down from the shoulder, big catch, and then we're going to go right back into it. So in that scenario, we can probably go for a set of like 5 to 8 pretty easily, 100-pound bag. But just in doing that, I can feel such an additional demand on my core, forcing that contraction each time you go down because it's such a big, awkward shape. You don't need a barbell. What you need to do is get into the description for EMOM Aesthetics. Use the code Shrugged to save 10% at checkout. It is the most efficient and effective way to get strong, lean, and athletic without spending 60 to 90 minutes in the gym. Sandbag cleans, highly effective. We love barbells, but if you don't have one because they're so hard to find, grab a sandbag and let's get strong. We'll see you guys next week.